The Journey of Sir Alberich Lichten. Day 5, Part 1. I will attempt to make this relatively brief, as we all overslept some while recovering from our initial day of raucous travel. I will write immediately about first the conversation with Helrica, and then the dreams I was tormented with last night. I will write down the conversation as it happened so as to not leave anything out. Helrica, may I speak with you a moment? Privately, outside the dome.
Sure, yeah.
Excellent. I will be perfectly blunt with you, Helrica. I don't agree with the course of action you took when we were fighting those stone-appendaged beasts. We all agreed that I could handle myself, and you let Adelaine nearly get crushed by a stone arm whilst trying to defend me. Now, I appreciate the thought, and your efforts were certainly valiant. However, I do not wish for this to happen again in the future.
Well, while I do respect your opinion and your knowledge of tactics and everything, I think you're stupid, and your pride and distrust is going to get you killed. I think that you don't give us enough credit to take care of ourselves. I mean, if you didn't trust us to handle ourselves, why would you invite us on an adventure to this super crazy evil island?
Perhaps my pride will get me killed, but I have lived my life. I can think of no greater death than to give my life so that the next generation can flourish.
Perhaps you should tell that to your wife and children, because I know I certainly don't want to have to tell them you were killed during the first battle of our journey just because you thought you could 1v1 a huge stone flesh creature thing. Besides, I thought you of all people would know how to delegate and the importance of keeping the commander alive.
I am all too familiar with what good leadership looks like. I know that it is vital for those in charge to remain well and strong when they are commanding armies. But when one is simply the leader of a group of young folk, it is important for the leader to give everything to keep the smaller number of people safe, because losses can be much more catastrophic.
We aren't children. Sure, we're a little new to this whole adventuring thing, but that doesn't mean we're fragile little babies.
No, I suppose you aren't. I'm sorry. I think I may be a little too overzealous. I appreciate your concern.
Why didn't you take care of that shoulder sooner?
Pardon?
You heard me. Why didn't you take care of your shoulder sooner? I saw you had the ability to do so, but you didn't. Instead, you spent all your energy fixing Ordon, who, let's be honest, deserves to suffer just a little bit.
I helped Ordon because he needed my help, and he is a member of my team. Personality be damned, he was injured, and that's what a good teammate does.
But you're not a teammate. You're a leader. And a leader can't just throw his life away because it'll make Ordon's life easier. Because in the end, we're all lost without a solid leader. Adelaine will never speak her mind. Pietro is smart, but he's too shy. And nobody cares what Ordon has to say.
And what of your opinion?
I don't want to be the leader. I'm not good at making snap decisions, and, to be honest, I don't know how you deal with the pressure of being responsible for so many people's lives.
Indeed, heavy is the head that wears the crown, my dear. Luckily, a straight back and a stiff upper lip makes for a strong neck.
I don't think that analogy works very well.
Maybe not. But you get the point, and that's what matters.
I do. Just stop trying to be this superhuman, unkillable, unshakable demigod. Everyone here would rather have a living human boss than a dead idol.
I promise I shall do my best.
Good. Now let's get the hell back inside the hut. This humidity is awful.
And that was that. Honestly, I don't know what I expected, but I'm glad it amounted to an open and honest conversation. The night went on, we finished sleeping, but none of our nights went very well, I think. Pietro had heard rumors about this place messing with your mind, and unfortunately for us, that took the form of ruining our dreams. I dreamt that I was asleep for a full week. I felt as if I was conscious in my body, with my eyes closed and my brain barely functioning past automatic operations. But I was aware of every single second that went past. I could sometimes remember why I was on this island, but I was unable to exist any faster than 1/10 of the normal speed of time. It's hard to put into words, but it felt like I was having to live through and experience every 10th of a second. It was horrible, and it led to some truly awful sleep. Adeline said she felt like she slept for a full day, though she woke up shortly after the rest of us. None of us had realized she was crying so much in her sleep. I tried to speak with her in the morning, but she was as untalkative as usual. But I know that morale and camaraderie is vital to a strong team, and mental health is the foundation of trust. So I took her to the side and I pleaded with her to share her experiences, since I'm pretty sure talking about trauma will help one get through it. At least, that's what I was told. Begrudgingly, she said she would, but only because, quote, I would probably die of either old age or stupidity soon, so her secret wouldn't be out for long. I laughed when she said this, but she didn't. Maybe it wasn't entirely a joke. Regardless, that's something to think on later. For now, I was given permission to write her story down so long as nobody else was to read it, and I promised her so long as I lived, her secrets would stay safe with me. She told me she had a dream of her home. She had been born to a well-respected halfling family in her home city, but when she was born, something had gone wrong, and the nursery caught fire. None of the other children were harmed, but Adeline herself was left with a burn scar on her leg that took the peculiar form of some kind of devilish face. It was brushed off as coincidence, but when the fires began following her wherever she went, it was quickly tied to her, and she was ostracized from her community and disowned from her family. The night her father was helping her pack her things to leave, he gave her a hug and an apology, and he spontaneously caught on fire. He didn't survive long after. Following that, the entire mansion she called home for so long was ablaze as well. Eventually, after that, the whole city. Last night, she apparently dreamt of it all. She's unsure why this destructive fire has followed her for so long, but she knew that hers wasn't a solitary case. She had found others who had learned to deal with similar affliction, ones who called themselves burdened children of the binder of flesh and flame. It sounds positively dreadful, and the name is quite the mouthful. But at least she seemed slightly better after talking about it all. After we packed up our camping supplies, we began our delving of the actual temple proper. We set to work on getting through the door, which was heavily guarded, trapped, and locked. The entrance to the thing was essentially a manhole cover with 5 deep slits in it, sat at the bottom of a wide circular pit in the ground. The walls of the pit were made of this ancient, moss-worn stone with intricate carvings of 5 awful eldritch beasts fighting the reptilian folk that once owned the world. Ordon went and studied the blue crystals that were embedded in the heads of each of the carved monstrosities, and determined them to still be active traps. We thought it would be easier to either break through or pick rather than search the entire world for 5 keys that might not even exist anymore, keeping wary of any sign of activation from the crystals in the walls. Once Pietro began to work his lockpicks into the lock, we felt the ground vibrate in protest. He continued slower and more intently, but after he had almost completed the 3rd lock, his fingers slipped for just a moment, and the crystals all flashed blue, and we were barely able to dodge out of the way of the 5 beams, all fired targeting the area around the manhole. Nobody was harmed, but one of the 2 sets of lockpicks had been destroyed, and our progress on the entrance was reset entirely. Ordon, never being one for redoing already completed progress, decided to use some of his magical reserves to unlock the cover. Unfortunately, the way he did so was with a spell that had a byproduct of making an incredibly loud snapping sound that rung out of the pit and was surely heard for a great distance by all of the fun, new, unexplored creatures that lived on this island. But the locks opened, the traps did not go off again, and we hurriedly made our way down a ladder into the entrance room of the temple. We left the cover open very slightly, just in case it locked again, and we needed a quick escape from this place. The temple air had gone stagnant millennia ago, and Helrika was forced to use some of her druidic magics to purify the room to make the air breathable. It seems this island is dead set on not making any part of this journey easy. The room we entered after going down the ladder was a large, circular room with walls made of the same moss-worn stone and had similar murals of those eldritch beasts. Though, in here, they were all one singular entity. The carving was so intricate and detailed that you could barely make out where one ended and another began, but there were definitely faint markings of separation. I can't accurately describe what the carvings looked like, but the closest I can approximate them was a cloud of stars, a cloud with thousands and thousands of layers that each overlap one another, and yet are entirely distinct in a lot of ways. It of course does the carvings no justice to describe them this way, but were I to accurately attempt to codify each aspect of detail, I would never move forward on our journey. I suppose I should focus on how I know the one mass was separated into 5 beings. It all made sense when I really looked at them, but that might just be the human need to compartmentalize and group things, codify everything into terms that are easier to digest. This mural depicted something that was attempting to go against that notion entirely. Upon Hilrika and Pietro gathering some of the rather mundane moss growing on the walls, we all exited out of the large circular ceremonial door that was sealed shut with age. However, upon giving it a little elbow grease, it half fell apart, and we gained entrance into the next section of the temple. The next room, the one we are currently occupying as I write, is one that seems to have been built solely to keep people out of the rest of the temple. Here, as I write, Ordon is trying to nullify some arcane sigil on several floor panels, and he is failing quite handily. Watching him become frustrated brings me no small amount of pleasure, but I suppose I shall try and help him solve the actual puzzle rather than attempting to skip it. In a few minutes. Meanwhile, Adelaine has been using some innate fire magic to attempt to light all of the torches in the room at once. There are 5 scattered around, but as soon as one is lit, it is extinguished before another is lit. This had also been quite frustrating for her, which is less fun to watch, as she seems to have started steaming? Regardless, I am currently taking a small break, and I will usher my compatriots to do the same now. Just a small extra here, Journal. Ordon gave up on trying to solve the puzzle because it was simply too difficult for him. However, upon me taking an actual look at the thing, I realized immediately it was something akin to an alphabetical puzzle written in Celestial, a language I learned to speak while on holiday with my wife several years back. Her and I took a trip to Mini Celestia, a beautiful resort in the Empire sat high on a mountain that boasted beautiful lakes to swim in, massages, incredible food. It was basically heaven. However, they were insistent on speaking purely Celestial there. So, in preparation, I learned a handful of phrases, and by the end of the trip, I wound up knowing a good deal. It's a very simple language to pick up, in fact. No difficult conjugations or... sorry. I'm getting very sidetracked. My point is that I didn't let Ordon know this, and I simply solved the puzzle on my first try, not saying any words while doing so. If there was any reason I would wish for incredible artistic prowess, it would be solely used for drawing Ordon's face of jealousy, embarrassment, and utter shock. Gods, it was perfect. Anyways, there is currently the sounds of a lot of skeletons approaching us now, and so I shall prepare myself for battle. I will say, I'm excited to fight undead once more. It's been a while.